Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, living beneficiaries, to the show for living beneficiaries, the House of Hidalgo show on the Estate Radio Network. Prepare for the most educational 60 minutes on all of radio with your host, Rick Hidalgo. The House of Hidalgo show can be followed on Twitter or Facebook by searching House of Hidalgo. Find the show on the web at www.therockofsalem.org. Sign up for the newsletter, and while you're there, take the 5-question survey to let us know what you think. The Estate Radio Network is part of the Blog Talk Radio family of networks and can be found at www.blogtalkradio.com/South Dakota DP. Join the show now by chat or call 619-639-4605. Don't forget to dial 1 to get in the queue. Here's your host, Rick Hidalgo! Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is, of course, another episode of the House of Hidalgo show with your host, Rick Hidalgo. This is broadcasting live on the Estate Radio Network. You can actually visit the Estate Radio Network at theestateradionetwork.com. And today is a very special day. Once again, we have a good friend of ours back, David Frank. He's on the line here waiting. And we're going to play a little clip here in just a minute. The clip is going to, it's actually a clip that Aaron Russo did. He's a gentleman who's now deceased. We're not sure as to whether there was foul play involved in that or not, so I won't spin any conspiracy theories at this point. But Aaron Russo, in this interview, was interviewing the chief of the IRS, and this guy was one who contributed to the Internal Revenue Service Code. And he was very active on Capitol Hill as far as passing legislation, and doing a lot of that brokering that happens between the fat cats up there at the top. So in just a moment I'm going to play that, but I'm going to go ahead and bring in our special guest. David, are you with us?
Yes, Rick. Thanks for having me on your program today.
It's always a privilege. I consider you almost like a spontaneous co-host from time to time. It's nice to have someone to banter back and forth with.
Well, hey, you know what? I try and get this message out to as many people as possible because America's in a real critical situation right now. A lot of people relate America to where Germany was when it was turning into Nazi Germany, with the economy the way it is and with the heavy hand of the government. So, if anybody knows history, we can almost predict where we're going, and that's why it's so important to, that we have the social media and programs like yours to help get this information out. So I just wanted to say thank you very much, Rick.
Hey, not a problem, David. For those of you that aren't aware, David Frank was a Martin Luther King Jr. Award recipient there in Indiana, and he's got a lot of critical information that he's going to give us today. You can go back to my archives, which are located at therockofsalem.org, and you can listen to the other 2 shows that we did with David and get a lot of key information. But for today, we're going to call this IRS Tax Code versus the David Frank Plan. Okay, that's the title of this show. And we're going to listen real quick here to Mr. Russo's interview. It's just short of 10 minutes. So here we go.
I was wondering why I never heard about all these Supreme Court decisions in the media. So I really wanted the IRS's point of view, because to get the true story, it was imperative I hear both sides. I kept wishing Anthony Burke would call me back. He seemed like an honest man. I then proceeded to call my message machine.
Hi, this message is for Aaron Russo. This is Anthony Burke at the Internal Revenue Service. Let me suggest some people that you might want to think about talking to. One would be Don Alexander, who's a former commissioner who's here in town in Washington. Another would be Sheldon Cohen, who is both a former commissioner and former chief counsel. All those guys, I think, can answer your question about, where in the tax law it says that you have to pay taxes.
Wow, good news, I thought. So I called Sheldon Cohen because he used to be the IRS commissioner. He wrote the tax code, and he was also general counsel to the IRS. He is a true expert, and I couldn't find a better person to answer my questions. He graciously agreed to my interview. The reason I'm doing this documentary is because there are many people in America today who believe that there's no law that requires them to pay an income tax or file a 1040. And there are many people going to jail for it, fighting over it.
The Internal Revenue Code is authorized by the 16th Amendment.
I think it should be clarified. I think government should be transparent to the people. Why doesn't the IRS commissioner sit down with them and just explain it in clear English? Why?
I don't think they really care. I think they're just playing word games.
You don't think they're sincere people?
No, I don't think they're sincere people.
What does voluntary compliance mean? And why does the IRS code say it's voluntary to comply, not mandatory?
That's a word euphemism we use. We use voluntary compliance when we talk about traffic signals. Most people, at 2 o'clock in the morning, do you stop at a red light?
Yeah.
Is there a cop there?
Well, sometimes I don't.
Well, I do, and most of us do. Most of us do.
Right.
But that's voluntary compliance.
That was a complete perversion of logic. Traffic laws state that it is mandatory to stop at a red light. The IRS code says it's voluntary to comply. Mandatory and voluntary are the complete opposite of each other. Yet he wants us to believe that they mean the same thing.
There's a quick little pause here, and it comes back in.
So can the government criminally prosecute somebody of information put on their 1040?
Yes.
Right, so doesn't that violate the Fifth Amendment?
No.
But the Fifth Amendment says I don't have to do anything that incriminates myself.
Well, it doesn't incriminate you to put your income down.
But you said before I could be put in jail for it. The commissioner wants us to believe that although the IRS demands that you fill out the 1040 and you can go to jail for it, that they are not violating your Fifth Amendment rights of self-incrimination. That is absurd. Isn't it true that the word income is not defined anywhere in the Internal Revenue Code?
The law says that the government has a right to tax income from any source derived.
So, but the word income is not defined in the code. It just says income without a definition
That's right.
of what income is.
That's right.
Correct?
Yeah.
But there are many different kinds of taxes. Well, how can an American citizen know what income is if the code doesn't define it? If they're paying an income tax...
Because the courts have all defined it.
Do you remember what constitutional attorney Edwin Vieira said?
The definition of income in the Constitution was given in the Eisner versus Montgomery case, and it turns on gains or profits that are made from some activity.
So the Supreme Court has ruled income is not wages, it's not labor, it's gain from corporate activity. I believe that a man's labor is his private property.
That's your view, but it's not the law.
The Supreme Court's even said your labor is your private property. When I go to work for somebody, it's a trade. It's an even exchange. I do some work, you give me some money.
Again, a quick pause. Comes right back in.
In 1916, we had the Bruce-Shaber case and the Stanton case. And the Bruce-Shaber case and the Stanton case said that the 16th Amendment gave the government no new taxing power.
I'm not going to argue the niceties of that with you.
And it came up again in a case called Peck versus Lowe, where the Supreme Court said the 16th Amendment did not extend Congress's taxing power to any new or accepted subjects. In other words, if you weren't taxable before the 16th, you weren't taxable after the 16th.
Today I interviewed a juror, okay, who sat on a case, and they found the person not guilty for lack of filing, okay? And I asked her why they found him not guilty. And she said because the IRS couldn't show us the law that made him liable to file a 1040.
All they need to do, if there is a law, is to show us the law, which, of course, they never did.
And the reason they didn't do it was why?
Because there is no law.
Title 26 requires you to file a return.
But doesn't Title 26 have to be in compliance with the Supreme Court decisions?
You're going to take a 1920 case and superimpose it on the whole Internal Revenue Code that was written after it? No, that's not.
I can't believe what I just heard. Rewind.
You're going to take a 1920 case and superimpose it on the whole Internal Revenue Code that was written after it? No, that's not.
Remember he said earlier the Internal Revenue Code was authorized by the 16th Amendment?
The Internal Revenue Code is authorized by the 16th Amendment.
Remember, the Supreme Court said the 16th Amendment did not give the government any new taxing power. These decisions have never been overturned. Let's listen further. Can the lower courts overrule the Supreme Court?
No.
How are they putting people in jail today for not paying a tax on their labor when the Supreme Court said they don't have to? Doesn't the IRS code have to be in compliance with the Supreme Court? That's my big question.
This is a waste of time.
Well,
because whatever I say, you're not going to believe.
He's right. I don't believe him. And neither should you. He wants us to believe we should obey the IRS code, which is being enforced in violation of the many Supreme Court decisions. If the Supreme Court made a decision...
Thank you, Aaron. I think we're finished.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cohen, you're doing that.
Well, I'm sorry that you constantly re-argue the point. You're liable because the law says that you're liable, and the courts say the law says you're liable, and that's why you're liable.
You see, he's talking about the lower courts, who are not in compliance with the Supreme Court, as they have to be. Doesn't the court have to be in compliance with the Supreme Court?
The Supreme Court has so held.
Where?
You caught me unprepared.
I'll come back to that.
Well, I don't want to do that.
But let me ask you a hypothetical question.
No. You're making silly arguments here.
Why is the Supreme Court decision a silly argument?
Well, because it's inapplicable.
That made my heart stop. He just said Supreme Court decisions do not apply to the IRS. That's the behavior you would expect from a totalitarian country, maybe China or Russia or Cuba. Not from America. They're just making up the law as they go along. Now I knew the tax honesty movement was right. The IRS thrives on intimidation and fear, not by law. It's no different than a criminal protection racket, using force to extract your money from you. Then the former IRS commissioner, now working at a prestigious Washington law firm, threatens me. Watch.
Aaron, you understand Yiddish. Hornish to helfen.
For those of you who don't understand Yiddish, that means nothing will help you. Now it all became clear. I understood why the IRS wouldn't go on camera and talk about where the law was. I understood why all the senators I called refused to be interviewed. There is no law. And now you know what our political leaders and the courts have known for decades and have tried to cover up. The United States Constitution strictly forbids a direct unapportioned tax on the wages and salaries of American citizens. The United States Supreme Court has consistently ruled that the income tax is a tax on profits and gains, not on labor and wages. On behalf of the American people, I challenge the IRS to show me a statute that allows a direct unapportioned tax on the wages and labor of the American people. And if I'm wrong, I will give my most humble apologies to the IRS. If the IRS is wrong, and there is no law, then every person who's been jailed should be let out of jail immediately, and any assets seized should be returned to their rightful owners. If this is a nation of laws and a free country, then the IRS should show the law to the American people.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the Aaron Russo interview with the Internal Revenue Service. What a joke! We can start this conversation, David, by just kind of going over a couple of the steps here. First, let's talk IRS, and then we'll talk the David Frank plan. Income tax. The entire principle that they apply to every penny that you put into your bank, whether it comes through income or not. What a fraudulent racket!
I agree. It's extortion. That's all it is. It's a scam, and it's been a scam forever. And he was absolutely right when he talked about, when you work for somebody and you have an agreement that person's going to pay you $10 an hour for your labor, and you give $10 worth of labor and he gives you $10, that's a barter of equal value. That's not income. But what they're doing is they're taxing our labor. It's almost like they're allowing us to work on this planet, and if they allow us to work on this planet, they're going to get a cutoff of everything we do, a cutoff of our energy. We have to pay them. That's not what our ancestors risked their lives for when they came to this country. They wanted to get away from this kind of thing where you're guilty until you can prove yourself innocent. We were supposed to be innocent until we could prove ourselves, and prove ourselves guilty, unless they could prove us guilty. And that's the exact opposite of what the income tax thing was all about. And that opened the door for so many all the other floodgates where, they really do treat us like we're guilty of something. But we've got to hire a lawyer so that we can prove that we're innocent. And it's all backwards now, and it's because we're living in a world where the lawyers make the laws, and the worse laws that they make, the more landmines we step on, and then we have to hire these lawyers to get us out of trouble. And many times they don't, but they take our money anyway, and that's why the prisons are filled today. But the whole thing in America has been a scam. It's been a misuse of words, and voluntary means voluntary. Voluntary means if you want to pay that, go ahead. If you don't want to, don't. That's not, and what we have in America is not voluntary.
That's exactly right, David. And to continue on down the IRS line, I mean, what percentage of the people that are today in prison do you believe are actually victim? How do I want to say this? How many of them are victimless crimes? I mean, how many?
Absolutely.
How many of these people never hurt a person, never hurt anybody's business, or never hurt anybody's ability to work? They never aggregated somebody. It's just total victimless crimes, and it's like the Gestapo coming after the Jew just because he's a Jew.
Absolutely. And that's where we're at in America, and that's what's so scary about where we're at in America, because Germany was a nice place to live before it became Nazi Germany, and America used to be a nice place to live. I'm 65 almost, and I was around before Vietnam, after World War II and before Vietnam, and those days were called the happy days. And then the military-industrial complex figured out that the way to make money is to be involved in wars so that we can blow up the equipment, so it has to be replaced by the military-industrial complex, and we've been doing that ever since. So, if you look at the overall system, Rick, it really is a scam. When we're paying people to represent us, almost $200,000 a year apiece, and they're also taking bribes from corporations being presented to them from lobbyists representing these special interests. What you've got is a scam. You've got organized crime. You've got racketeering. That's what America has turned into. And then when you come down the system a little further, you have the judicial industrial complex, where, the lawyers make lots of money by throwing us through this judicial meat grinder. And then you're passed on to the prison industrial complex, where they make money. They benefit for every bed that's filled. It's almost like those chain gangs years ago that used to use people to build the roads. And the more people they had, the more prisoners they had, the more free labor that they had. And it was a money-making proposition, and that's what's going on in America today, sadly. But the good thing is that people are waking up, and they're starting to get educated on what the IRS is all about, and income tax is all about, and the Federal Reserve is all all about, and they're starting to understand these things thanks to the social media that we're now using, because people like Russo, who took the time to investigate that issue, hey, the guy has passed away, but his information is still getting out there, and it's still being used to educate people on the fact that, the whole IRS thing is a scam, and it's called prima facie law, where it's the kind of thing where if I go up to you and say, hey, you owe me $10, you go, oh, well, if you say I do, I guess I do, and you hand over the $10. Well, that's what prima facie law is, and that's what the IRS is using by sending us these forms and giving us the idea that if we don't fill them out and send them in, we're going to prison. And there's really nothing to stop you from going to prison, like I said, because now you got the juvenile industrial complex that has an incentive, to receive business any way they can, even if it be, you not paying your income tax or filing your return or whatever. And, we've just got to get rid of this is the point that I'm trying to make. And we don't have to do this anymore. We can come up with a better tax system than the income tax, the state income tax, federal, all this. We need a tax system that makes sense for everyone, and this obviously doesn't.
Right. And you think about the number of people that have to hold hands to keep this Ponzi scheme going. Look at the number of agents and agencies that have to be in collusion. When you're looking at the IRS, of course, they're going to have enforcement. Well, their enforcement comes by, the spy network of the NSA. Their enforcement comes by the overreach of the courts through the bail bond system, where they get somebody post bail on a bond, and they take that bond and they monetize it and they put the money in their pockets. And I mean, just look at the number of people that have to be in collusion on these things, David. It's just sickening.
Right, and they're all perpetuating the Ponzi scheme, like you said, Rick. And what it is now what we need to do is really start to understand that what the mafia had, what the government is, what most of these scams are, is they're top-down systems, and top-down systems benefit the people at the top, and that's what we have to realize. This is just a top-down system. It's perpetuated by all the bureaucrats, because they're like the Roman tax collectors. And you know what happened to Rome because of the Roman tax collectors. And they got their piece of the action. The Roman tax collectors lived very well. They got their piece of the action. These people are just 21st century Roman tax collectors. Mm-hmm. And look at and they're able to do what they're doing because there's nothing in the laws that really prevent them from doing what they're doing. Rick, I have to grab this. Just 1 second.
All righty. Oh. What we're going to do is we're going to take a quick...
Let me call you back. I'm on the radio. Okay, sorry, Rick.
That's all right, David. I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll go ahead and take a quick little 2.5 minute commercial break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the David Frank plan. Do you need an experienced editor to look over your short story, script, or novel? Do you need help building a platform or self-publishing your book? Are you on the cusp of realizing your dream, but you need someone to help you with those few extra steps? Are you a business in need of an established copy editor or copywriter? Dan O'Brien has more than a decade of experience in writing and publishing, and his rates are flexible. All that matters to Dan is the integrity of your artistic vision, and Dan can help you create the highest quality work possible. Please email Dan today at amalgamconsulting@gmail.com or visit his website, www.amalgamconsulting.com. That's AMALGAM consulting.com. Write Dan today. Start your dreams tomorrow. Do you have hopes, dreams, and goals, but don't know how to reach them? Do you wonder how you could do differently to achieve greater success at home or at work? Do you feel like something is holding you back from enjoying your life to the fullest? Are you fed up with status quo and ready for real and lasting life change? Are you wanting to start a business or expand an existing one? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, then you are ready for life coaching with Mr. Attitude. Mr. Attitude will stretch and grow you and take your life to a whole new level of success by equipping you with the tools to help you to accomplish more in less time, get and keep your priorities in line, gain greater happiness and joy, face your fears, plan for success, be more assertive and confident, overcome negative stress, deal with negative thinking, set goals you will achieve, and more. Mr. Attitude specializes in results producing, life strategy coaching for the personal side of your life, small business coaching for those who want to start a small business or build a stronger small business, train the trainer coaching for those who aspire to become a motivational professional speaker. Call today and reserve your appointment with greater success. 605-450-1955. That's 605-450-1955. Or email Bob at MrAttitudespeaks.com. That's MrAttitudespeaks.com. Mr. Attitude is committed to your success. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the House of Hidalgo show. I am your host, Rick Hidalgo. Of course, we are broadcasting on the Estate Radio Network. And we're with our guest, David Frank, today. David Frank has joined us to talk about his plan, primarily about the updates that are going on, and also how his plan pertains to helping us with this tax nightmare that we're under today. If you missed it, you can listen to the archive anytime. But the first half of the show, we discussed the clip that we played in an Aaron Russo interview with the IRS. The second half of the show now we're devoting to the David Frank plan and how it is that we can utilize what his plan advocates to change the entire system. So without any further ado, David, welcome back to the program. Would you like to maybe start by giving us some updates on what's going on with your plan there?
Well, yeah. Let me. Do you mind if we just do that at the end?
Because, yeah, sure.
Because I'd really like people to know, what we're pushing here, and Rick, the figures are out now, and the figures say that we're now working 190 days out of 365 days to feed this government that does basically nothing positive for us. They've figured out a way to get people around the world absolutely hating us. The services and the programs that they provide are garbage. They don't work for anybody. They're just ripe for corruption. We hear about Medicare fraud and Medicaid fraud and all this, Social Security fraud and IRS fraud, and the list just goes on and on and on. But the bottom line is that we have to first realize that the system is very broken and corrupt, and we have to realize that the people that are responsible for breaking it and corrupting it aren't going to fix it. The people have to fix it. The people are the ones that have the answers to the problems that are plaguing us, whether it be, a better health care system, a better, more fair tax system, better infrastructure. We're seeing bridges falling down around the country, and we know what happened in New Orleans. And so, and we have environmental issues and education issues, and all of these questions, these problems go on, and we keep waiting for the politicians to solve these problems for us, but they are the problem. And what these figures say is that we're now working 190 days out of 365 days out of the year to pay taxes, and we're now trying to live on less than 50 cents on the dollar. And these taxes have totally destroyed this country and taken the incentive for people to work away. And what we need is a system that really does work for everyone. And what we really need is a 21st century of the people, by the people, and for the people system. And living in the 21st century, we're surrounded by all of this miraculous communication technology that, like you and I are using right now, but we've got to start using it the right way. You know, we on the television, for example, we have all these different channels. We have the food channel, the travel channel, sports channel, all these different channels, hundreds of channels, but we don't have the most important channel so that we, the people, can start fixing America. And the most important channel that we need is the local issues television and radio channel. So what we're doing is we're going to build a local issues television and radio channel in our community so that people in our community can start coming up with ideas to make our education system better, our environment better, a better tax system, better ideas for our infrastructure. And instead of presenting it to the politicians, and we know that government is where great ideas go to die, we want those ideas to be presented directly to the community over the local issues television and radio channel, and so that the community can consider these ideas. And then what we need to do is we want to make sure that the community is educated on these issues. So we want to have debates on these different ideas that people have to make our community better. And we want to videotape these debates, present these videotapes of the debates and the issue number to the community over our local issues television and radio channel. Anybody that's interested in any of these issues can pick up any touch-tone phone. Remember, we're voting on American Idol, we vote on CNN, we vote on Fox, we vote on Dancing with the Stars, but we aren't voting on the important things in our lives. And anybody can vote with any touch-tone phone. What we're going to build is a community computer that will have your citizen participation identification number, so that when you vote, the call will go into the computer. It will verify you with an ID number and a PIN number, ask what issue number you'd like to vote on, press 1 for yes, 2 for no, count your vote, block you out from voting more than once, and we can now have decisions made of the people, by the people, and for the people. And every time this videotape is replayed, there'll be an updated tally of the yeses and the nos. And at the end of this videotape being replayed over a 10-day period, not only will the community understand the issue, but it will come from them. And what we'll do is we'll implement these ideas in our community, and then we'll share that idea, that information with other communities, and we can start rebuilding America from the ground up, not the top down like we see in America now. Once again, top-down systems benefit the people at the top. Ground-up systems benefit everyone because it gives everybody the opportunity to have a voice, not just the rich people and the rich corporations, but everybody. So that's what we're promoting, and what we need to do is, you know, this whole program that you started today is talking about the tax system. It's important for your listeners to sort of visualize America in a new way. We need to remap America so that we can get organized. And the politicians have figured this out with gerrymandering. They remapped America so that they could get elected or reelected. The Postal Service figured it out with zip codes. They remapped America so that they could deliver the mail more efficiently. The phone company figured it out with area codes so that we could communicate better. So the American people need to have a plan, and the plan is to use the present-day communication technology to remap America so that it looks like a honeycomb. And if you look at God's creature that's most responsible for making the world a beautiful place, it's a honeybee, stores the fruits of its labor in a honeycomb. The new map of America will now look like a honeycomb. Your community will now look like a hexagon. And the nucleus of your community will be the local issues television and radio channel to send the information out, a community computer so that anybody that wants to vote on any issue, their vote will be received, and it will block them out from voting more than once, and we can now have decisions made by the people. And when we find things that work, like I said, we share it with 999 other communities. When they find things that work, they share it with us, and we start rebuilding from the ground up.
Right. Excellent. Yeah. And if you guys want more detail, I encourage you to go back and listen to the archives of the last calls as well. David, every time you say that, I focus on a different point. It always brings me to something different. And today, I guess what kind of struck me was I'd love to see somebody draw a picture of America where it looked like a honeycomb, where it actually sectioned it off into little hexagons. That would be a cool picture.
Well, it's on my book. My book is on our website, onevoicenow.info, onevoicenow.info, and if you go to the website under book, it'll show you the book. The back of the book, it shows America looking like a honeycomb. And the exciting thing about it is it's going to happen around the world, because when we rebuild America looking like a honeycomb in our community or in our country, they're going to do it everywhere around the world. And see, everybody thinks that Washington, D.C. is going to fix America. They can't. And state capitals aren't going to fix America. They can't either. The way that you fix America is the same way that you eat an elephant. You do it one small piece at a time. And by remapping America into 1,000 hexagons, each of those pieces can get busy trying to fix their community, finding things that work. Right now in our community, we have 267,000 people or brain cells, and we're relying on 9 on the city council to basically spend our money the way we want it spent. The best way to spend that money the way we want it to spent is to ask us. And that's what this new technology will do. This is the transparency that everybody's talking about. And it's using the television the right way, not to program us to be oversexed and overviolent, but to be used as a way to get important information out to the community.
Right. Let me ask you a question, and usually I try to find something, a different category that we haven't discussed before. How do you change the psychological mechanism of America? I mean, and here's where I'm going with this. You've got a very large portion of Americans now, especially in urban areas, that are very, very complacent and very well, kind of fat and happy because they're on every government subsidy under the sun. How do you compel those people to start looking at life from a different perspective and take responsibility for themselves and join in on this crusade, David? Well,
they got that way because that was the program that was presented to them, and they took advantage of it. And that program doesn't work. Having Washington take care of the poor people in our community is silly. We need a more energy efficient system, and that's what this is. And the only reason they're taking advantage of it is because it was available. We need to make a different system available to them, and this is the system. It really is mind-boggling. I think that those people really do want to do something constructive in their lives, but it's almost like a drug. I think they get that. I think they get people addicted to that drug, where every month they know they're going to get that check, or that those food stamps or whatever. But the system is so stupid; it's just ripe for corruption, and that's why you need to handle that in your own community. You need to come up with a better system to help the people who need help in your community. But sending our money to Washington, D.C. so that they can help the people in our community is just stupid. It's energy inefficient, and we're not going to let people starve in our community. We don't need the federal government to care more about those people than we do, but we need our money back. And what this new system will do is give us all a voice, so that somebody in our community can raise the issue. Hey, wait a minute, I've studied income tax, and I think it's totally unconstitutional, and I don't think that we should send our money to 536 people in Washington, D.C., who we know are corrupt, who 92% of the people think are doing a failing job. Let's raise the issue in our community. Let's debate it. Let's vote on it. Let's we the people decide if we want to keep funding Washington, D.C., and if not, let's come up with a system in our own community, a fair tax system that keeps the money right in our community. And that's what we can do in each community. You know, the Federal Reserve, which we all know now is a scam, all that was a system that was approved by the politicians back in 1913. I'm sure they were all bribed. Woodrow Wilson and Congress, they enacted the Federal Reserve Act that gave a private bank, the Federal Reserve Bank, the right to take a worthless piece of paper, put ink on it, and rent it to us so that we could barter with each other. And the only thing that was important about that piece of paper was the number on that paper. That's how we transported numbers. Instead, we've always had a barter system, but instead of bartering chickens for pigs, I give you $10 and you give me a chicken or a couple chickens or whatever a chicken costs. I don't know. So that was the new barter system using numbers, and we needed that worthless piece of paper. We needed to rent it, I guess, according to our Congress. We should have done it ourselves. I don't know why we needed a private bank to do it, but I guess there was a duel between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr regarding that issue. But anyway, we live in the 21st century, and we don't need their worthless pieces of paper any longer to transfer numbers from my account into your account. And we can do it now electronically. So what we're going to do in every community is we're going to have a community financial institution, which will basically be a computer that stores our numbers. You know, you might have $10,000 in your checking account or your savings account. You'll still have $10,000. But instead of being in that other bank, it's going to be in your community financial institution, and then you're going to be able to transfer those numbers. And every time there's a transfer, remember, presently, what we're doing now is using debit and credit cards. And whenever we buy something, the state gets 7% sales tax, and the credit card company gets 3% from the merchant and so much from you, about 10 or 11%. Well, what we need is a system, a tax system, where 10% off of every transaction is handled by the community financial institution, and every time there's a transaction, 10% is considered a tax or a donation, and it goes right into our fund for the community to pay for things like infrastructure and education and health care and the things that we, the people, want paid for. And the nice thing about this new communication system is when we have this pot of money, then we, the people, can decide where we want it to go, as opposed to the politicians having control over that money so that they can do these bogus projects in every community that feeds their political cronies so that they can make lots of money off of it. They're just scams is all they are. But that's basically it. It can be done very simply. And as far as the federal government, obviously, I guess we need to have some kind of defense. So when you have 1,000 communities all collecting a fee off of transactions in their own communities, and then a percentage of all of those collections will be shifted to the federal government to pay for, our defense. And that's basically it. And we can forget about all these other taxes, property taxes, totally unconstitutional. You got to get rid of all property taxes so that we can own property again like we did at one time. And, license plates and all these fishing licenses. We're running around paying all these taxes so we can exist. And we just don't need to do this anymore. It can be very simple, and we, the people, can decide what role we want our federal and local government to play. We don't need our state government anymore. State governments need to handle their communities. They need to go back to and handle whatever community they're in. And sending our sales tax to state capitals so they can send it back to us is just energy inefficient and stupid. We need to keep our money right in our own communities and pay for the things that we want paid for.
Excellent. And going back to the question that I asked, and you answered it very fairly. I just wanted to post another thought behind it. There was, there's some discussion or chatter out there about, not being, that it's very possible that our system can fail. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about our system at some point failing because of the perceived debt and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people are saying that in order for these things like you're talking about to come forward, that we're going to have a total collapse because these people are so engaged in this particular governmental handout system that they're not going to be willing or cooperative to come along with a different system. Now, and you explained your system really well, and I'm not debating that, but I wonder, David, that a lot of people have heard this old saying that if you don't plan, you're going to fail. Is it possible that God inspired David Frank to write this plan so that when a collapse happens, we have something to fall back on? Well, I think it's a good plan, and I can't take credit for it. All I know is it was given to me to give to everybody else, and that's what I believe. I think everything that's good for us comes from God, and I think this is really good for us because obviously other people are controlling our lives, which means you're in prison or slavery, and that's what we are waking up to. We are waking up to the fact that, when people control your energy, when they control your money, when they control your health care, when they control everything like that, they control your lives. They even control our food now. And we need to take re-control of our lives, and that's what technology will do. And I believe God has given us this technology so that we can be free. Back at the time of Pharaoh, God gave Moses a piece of wood to free the slaves. And today he gives us a television, a touch-tone phone, and a computer. And if you put all three of those components together, you have a communication system that we've never had before. And it's a kind of system where you really don't need anybody misrepresenting you any longer. You can now represent yourself, and you can have a voice. In the Constitution, slaves didn't have voices. And conversely, people without voices are slaves. And I can tell you, I'm 65 years old in a few weeks, and I have never been asked my opinion on any issue from any of these politicians. So I can tell you, they do not represent me. I do not have representation. And if I don't have representation and I care about the world that I live in, I need a voice in that world. But what my goal is to get your listeners to consider this. Quit worrying about what's going on in Washington, D.C. I mean, it's good to know because you can see how corrupt and bad it is. The way that you pull the ladder from the people at the top is you pull it from the bottom. That means in your community. What you need to do is get busy in your community with this plan, and you need to install the local issues television and radio channel and the community computer. This is what I'm doing in my community. I've approached people on the city council. Those are the people that decide the direction of your community. And I found the right people on the council. Most of them are egotistical. They don't like this plan because they want to keep feeding their friends, and they don't want any of the things that they've done in the past to come out. But I found the right people on the city council that really do care about the community. And I presented this plan to them, and they are on board. And what we need to do is ask for the funding from the city council to provide this communication technology in our community. And I've gone to the program director at our local public broadcasting station and the general manager,
And I sat down and I've talked to them about how bad we are in America. I've sort of educated them on the seriousness of where we're at in America and our community. You know, we just saw Detroit go bankrupt, and we've seen other communities that have gone bankrupt and or they're going to. And when that happens, chaos is going to happen. That's why it's so imperative that we have a tool in each community so that we can communicate, so that we can start getting reorganized. Because when you're totally disorganized, that's when you have chaos. And when you have chaos, that's when people get hurt and things get bad. That's what war is. War is chaos. And so anyway, I've approached them. I told them what I wanted to do. I want to use our public broadcasting station to actually broadcast the public, and we want to allow that to be our station where we can start presenting ideas to the community for making our community better. We want a program where we can debate those ideas, present that to the community. Public broadcasting needs to be used to broadcast the public. We, the people, fund it, and we, the people, should own it. Nobody really owns public broadcasting. There's no reason why you can't own your own public broadcasting station in your own community and have this channel up and running where people come forward, present ideas to the community, debate them, assign an issue number to them, let them vote on it, implement that, give that to your city council, and have them implement those ideas and start looking for solutions to the education problem, the environment problem, the healthcare problem, all of these problems, the food problem, the judicial problem, the penal problem, all of these problems that we have in each community. So that's the way to attack it. I'm available if anybody needs me. I'll be glad to talk to the people at your public broadcasting station or your city council people. Hey, we can have a chat right here on Skype or whatever. This technology is being dropped into our laps. Let's use it. I'll be glad to present the plan to anybody that you want me to present it to and answer any questions that you have.
You know, David, it's kind of funny. I once worked with an evangelist who used to call the television the hell-o-vision, okay, because he was so offended by it. Well, what you're talking about doing, David, is taking the hell-o-vision and turning it into the people vision.
Right, the people vision. Very good, Rick. I like that.
You're talking about changing it into the people vision and actually utilizing this tool that has actually been used against us to dumb us down and to
program us.
Yeah, to program us.
They're programming us to be oversexed and overviolent. It's being turned into all it is an advertising device. You know, you watch a show for 2 minutes or 3 minutes, then you watch commercials for 2 minutes. You know, and we're paying for this stupid stuff. and all it's doing is it's turning us into a consumer. All they want us to do is be fat consumers where whatever money we have to buy that thing that we were just programmed to like on television. And you know, that's the television being used in the wrong way. That television needs to be used to share information to make our lives better. And there are people out there that have those ideas. And think of this local issues television and radio channel as your website on your television. As you're surfing by, you can stop, you can see what issue is being presented at that time, and if you've got an idea for the community, they'll tell you exactly how to get your idea out to the community over this interactive website that will be right on your television, and the people in your community can start communicating. All of a sudden, when we fire up 267,000 brain cells in our community, all you've got to do is do that 1,000 times across America, and you've got nearly 300 million brain cells up and working, as opposed to the brain-dead system that we have now, where 535 brain cells do the thinking for 300 million.
Right. Yep. 10-4. I just thought it was, you know, that's one of those areas where it's just going to take a paradigm shift, David. We're going to have to start looking at things differently than we look at them now, because we've been conditioned and programmed to see things a certain way. The television has done that, and we, as the people, we need to take control of those things and start utilizing those very tools that have been used against us to perpetuate our future. And so that's well said, David. I appreciate you bringing that out. Now, you mentioned that you've gone to your city council and or certain factions within your city council, and you've started the process. Have they actually had a discussion within the city council yet on this?
No, what's going to happen is, now in our community we have Comcast, and Comcast gives $670,000 a year to our local government, and that money was supposed to be used to provide a communication system, like public access in our community.
Yeah.
Well, what the local government did was that they threw that into the general fund. And what these politicians that are on board with this thing are going to do is they're going to push for a resolution that money be used to fund this program. That money will be given directly to WNIT, which is our public broadcasting station, and that's where we're going to build the room and the technology, and we're going to start pushing solutions to the community through our public broadcasting station. And the great thing about public broadcasting is if you don't have cable or if you don't have dish, you get it. But if you do have cable and a dish, you also get it. So everybody gets public broadcasting. And keep in mind, we the people pay for public broadcasting. Nobody really owns it. It's funded by we the people. And we the people should be using it to broadcast the public. So, hey, if you're an activist, if you're not an activist, everybody, if you'll just look at this plan, if you'll start talking to the people on your city council and talk to the people at public broadcasting, you bring those two components together, and all of a sudden you can really start getting some action in your own community.
David, I don't know why I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to. Right after this program is over, which we're about 2.5 minutes away, when we finish, I'm going to go straight into my website and I'm going to put a link to your book on my website so people can go out and get a copy, because they're going to need a copy to present to their city councils.
Yeah, it's very simple, and it's right there in the book. And we can do this. We can do this, and it's the only way that America is ever going to have a solid foundation. Because, right now the story of the Tower of Babel, where they were building so big, and then it fell over. Well, people don't realize that we've sent $3 trillion every year to the top of this Ponzi scheme. And for those of you who don't know what $3 trillion is it's 3 million divided by 535 guys at the top of the pyramid. And believe me, those lawyers who make up the bulk of those 535 people, they know how to twist a law around to benefit themselves.
Yes. You're exactly right. Well, David, do you still have a website or maybe a contact email or something you'd like to give out?
Yeah, our website is One Voice Now, ONE voicenow.info, and my email address is davidafrank1948@yahoo.com. And if anybody wants me to have a conversation with anyone on your city council or at public broadcasting so that we can talk about the way to approach this, I would be more than happy to. You can also reach me on Skype. So, looking forward to working with you people.
Yes, excellent. I appreciate you coming on today, David. We're down at the 32nd level here, and it's always a pleasure to bring you on. It's always a pleasure to work with you, David, and I look forward to working with you more as we begin to implement these things in our communities.
Thank you, Rick.
So, for David Frank, this is Rick Hidalgo. This has been episode 39 of the House of Hidalgo show. Thank you all for listening. God bless. Good night all, and stay safe.